Hey guys, so we're gonna start. Um, Everyone can hear me and see the slides.
Yes, I can.
All right. So my name is Maya TERRO. I'm from Lebanon. I started my nonprofit organization in 2012. I was 24 back then. Today I'm almost 34. So today I'll be discussing youth-led change, how to build a youth-led movement for sustainable development. Over the past year, there's been a growing movement that has, let me just put this, right. So over the past years, there has been a growing youth movement that has generated a new wave of youth-led and youth-driven organizations. Generation Z, speaking about those born between 1997 and 2015, also known as Zoomers, have been speaking up, and there has been a massive rise in youth-led protests, movements, and organizations around the world. While there is not like a solid number on how many exist in the world today, a good estimate will be in the thousands, depending on how and when they are counted. So in this session, I want to provide you with an overview of what youth-led organizations are all about, like what they are, their main challenges, their impact, and most importantly, through what I hope to be an interactive session, I will walk you through the different steps that youth-led movements or organizations usually go through based on my own experience with my organization, which is a brief introduction. It's called FoodBlessed, and it's community-based and volunteer-driven. And I would describe it as a youth-led organization because most of the volunteers who run FoodBlessed or who are at the heart of who we are and what we do are youth. So some key terms to start with. There's a link here. If you can you access it? Can you link it? Like click on it. I'm gonna click on it. I don't know, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. No, cannot be done.
Oh, can't be. All right. No worries. Can you in the chat box just write 3 words that come to mind when you hear the term youth-led organization or youth-led movement? So I'm going to give you guys a minute to do that. Modern, uplifting, powerful. Okay. There's like, I'm not going to show you mine. I'm sorry. There's like 15 of you. So I'm expecting like 15 entries or at least 15 different terms. Fearless. Energy. Youth-led movements, youth-led organization. What's the first word that pops to mind? Strategic group, optimistic. You're thinking too deeply. Activism, all right. But what is the first challenges, positivity, activism? But what is like the first word like that pops to mind when you say youth-led? I haven't seen that word yet. No one. under-resourced. Well, that's one of the young people. Amazing, Fidelin. That's the one I was looking for. Young people or youth. Innovation is another one. It's one of the tactics used. It is new generation, basically, as I discussed, Generation Z. Attractive in terms of like the approach. It is innovative and attractive. Yes. Activism, definitely. Whenever you hear youth led, it's almost equally meaning activism. Unique approach. Love that a lot of you are talking about the approach. It's usually a unique, it's usually online, it's usually innovative and attractive. Anyone wants to add anything? Right, I think we're good. Open-minded, exactly. It's very important to be open-minded. So I'm gonna share mine. Just a minute. So youth, I thought it was an important word. One of you guessed it. Leadership, youth-led movements are mostly usually have to do a lot with leadership. Youth-led was one of the things I thought about. Adult, which I know is something that not a lot of people think when you think about youth-led movements, but it is a key factor or a key component, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Adultism is it's a term that I wasn't really very familiar with, but then I recognized what it is, and I was like, oh my God, I've been faced with this all my life, but I didn't know there was a term for it. And then something that most of us forget is you, because youth is all about you, and like if there's no you, there's no youth. So starting with the word youth, the definitions of like youth vary. Some groups define youth as young people under the age 18, others under 21, and then there's a group that considers anyone who is under 25 as youth. Some organizations have shifted from being led by youth to being how do you call it, like constituent led. So the key point here is that whether the youth are the ones who are at like the beneficiaries or the ones leading it, youth-led movements are usually about groups of people who decided that it is more important for young leadership to have similar experiences to youth in a program. Like for them, it's important for them to lead their own battles and have the adults lead their battles for them. Another term is youth-led. So self-defined youth-led groups use a range of definitions as well as structures. It's as variant as the term itself, youth. As someone like for me, who I've been engaged in volunteerism since I was 14 years old. So I've been engaged in developing and working with youth-led organization. It is always important for me to be clear in terms of what I mean when I say youth-led. And by being clear, it doesn't mean that this means that's the only definition of it. So one thing that you read about when you read about youth-led movements or organization is that the term youth-led, or the question of youth-led organizations, is not an either or situation. It's helpful in this case to think about youth leadership and governance as a continuum with a spectrum of possibilities, something that can develop and can change over time. So that spectrum can range from organizations where youth are being served by adults. In this case, the youth are beneficiaries, to others where youth have some decision-making roles. And then there are movements and organizations where youth occupy all major leadership positions. So all of these are youth-led, and it's the spectrum that differs when it comes to the role that youth play in each movement organization. This is one of the approaches when thinking about youth-led movements organization. They call it the 3 lens approach diagram. And youth are usually were seen as beneficiaries or being engaged as partners, but more and more youth are taking the role of leaders in starting their own movements, which are purely led by the youth for the youth. So like, let me go back to leadership is the word I wanted to discuss. So when talking about leadership, from youth-led comes the word leadership. For most sustainable youth-led organization, youth leadership is part of their mission, a core reason why they exist, and a core challenge as well in which they choose to engage over time. Some organizations are youth-led by default. It means that either their founders are young people or young people happen to come into leadership positions in the organizations. These organizations often do not stay youth-led over time because, I started, I was 24, now I'm 34. Unless they go through an explicit process of deciding to be a youth-led organization, I do still consider my organization a youth-led organization because it's not just about me, it's me and a group of people who are managing my organization, which the majority of our youth are under the age of 24. Most youth-led and youth-driven organization grow out of adultism, as we're gonna discover what that is, and the ways in which young people are systematically excluded from decisions that impact their lives. So a youth-led organization or project is one which the youth constituents decide what gets done and how it gets done. Which brings us to the next term that we want to discuss, adult. It's true, like when people think about youth-led movements organization, they don't think much about adults because they think, oh, it's all about youth. But contrary to what many believe, youth-led does not necessarily mean no adult involvement whatsoever or no adult role. Youth-led is specific relationship between the youth and adults, where adults are considered to have a supportive role by supporting the youth to gain the skills, the information, the knowledge, and the capacity to be able to make decisions about the movements and organizations that they want to lead. In this case, adults usually play the roles of coaches, for example, mentors, trainers to the young people who are eventually the decision makers. Youth leadership promotes the notion that adult allies should not do for the youth what young people can do for themselves. That's something I talked about before. So the whole point of youth-led movements came to be because the problems that were being addressed were related to the youth, and the youth saw that they should be doing what they need to do for themselves and not wait for others to do it, specifically the adults. Which brings us to a term that's not really known, but it's very key when talking about youth-led movements and organizations. It's adultism. So adultism, by definition, is the assumption that young people are inferior to adults simply because of their young age. From my experience, I suffered from adultism because in many meetings and workshop, I was the youngest, and some of the people in the room were double my age, if not more, and didn't consider my opinion as important enough, or we're older, we know better kind of attitude I usually used to hear from those in the room, like, we love your approach, but we know better because we are more knowledgeable, or you're still young, you still need to learn a lot. So like, some define adultism as the power adults have over children. And adultism usually happens when adults think that the youth don't have their facts straight, like, yeah, you don't know better because you're still young. And adults think that they can tell us what to do as young people, while in reality, they play an important role in making sure we have access to what youth need to make informed decisions. So the point that we're trying to make here is that adults shouldn't think for us, they just need to think with us. And the last point, why adultism usually happens, is a lot of adults think the youth are just angry and spontaneous. And in this case, it's hard to create solution together if the adults or the adult allies that we're working with considered our feeling as an excuse for them not to hear what we have to say. Because being angry or spontaneous or whatever is a human feeling. It's not just because I'm young, I'm angry. And it shouldn't be an excuse for adults to be like, oh, you're too angry, we can't talk to you, and things like that. To this end, by establishing structures that empower youth as leaders, both inside and outside the movement or the organization we're talking about, youth-led movements and organizations help to create a unique environment where youth are valued and nurtured as decision makers and leaders, not just as partners or as beneficiaries, and where adult allies have a supportive role rather than a leading one. And last but not, like, this is what I just discussed. And last but not least is you. Like, when I think about youth-led movements, I think about myself because I was young when I started my organization. There's definitely power in numbers, but we always have to remember that it starts with individuals like you and me. Anything that's big or ever has potential to be or grow starts with one person. So, and while starting a movement may seem like a huge or impossible feat, it is always advisable to have a solid foundation by actively engaging in activism. So, starting with the basics, and something I mentioned before, I started volunteering when I was only 14. And by volunteering, I was able to engage with my community. And it really empowered me as an individual and as a person. Like, I learned so much, and mostly I learned from other adults' mistakes of how to be the change I want to see, want to see by being me, which is a young person who wants to make a change without having the need to wait till I'm an adult to make change. So some of the things to focus on when you want to engage in activism, first you have to speak out and speak out loud. So taking the first step in making a difference starts by something simple as posting the issues that you feel concerned about on social media, writing a blog or a tweet, or just posting a powerful image can make someone else become aware of an urgent issue that they weren't aware of. For example, like there was a really viral image of a polar bear, emaciated one. If you remember that one, it went viral, and a lot of people, because of that image, started to think seriously about climate change. You can even create an account dedicated to the cause you're passionate about to become more active and also to engage others. Another thing is to listen to what others have to say. Could be through social media. It could be about by conducting a survey and sharing the results with your friends, your classmates, your colleagues. Awareness surveys are especially useful if you want to find out how people tend to think or feel or behave towards a specific topic, what their attitudes are, and what their beliefs are like. Sorry. A third and most important point, and I always talk about it, is that you have to walk the talk. If you want others to join you, you have to start with yourself. And it starts by living according to what you believe in. So, for example, if you're passionate about fighting climate change or fighting food waste, like I'm very passionate about food waste. And one of the things that my organization, FoodBlessed, works on is hunger relief and food waste. So we try to rescue food from going to waste by giving it to people in need. And for me, I've been eating expired food since 2013 to prove a point that just because the date says it's expired or it's after best before doesn't mean it's not good to consume. Um, so these changes that you make your life, like the changes to your lifestyle, such as being mindful about what you buy, how you consume your food, what you do with your food scraps, not throwing them, donating them, giving them to animals, or turning them into compost. In terms of climate change, like taking public transport, reusing, recycling, repurposing stuff. All of these small life changes can make a huge difference. So by leading by example, I know for a fact that others will definitely follow your lead, because once they see you doing the things you talk about, like walking the talk, they will definitely join you and walk beside you. You could also join a club that supports what you believe in. Could be online, could be offline. Like I remember I was part of an environmental club in my university. And in addition to like actually learning stuff, I got to meet like-minded people. And it's always important to share ideas and have conversations with people who share your hopes and fears and are passionate about things you're passionate about. Uh, and last but not least, learn by doing could come in many forms. One of them is by volunteering. Other ways could be by applying for internship in organizations or non-profit or even companies that are related to the things that you're interested in and passionate about, because this will give you the opportunity to learn more about an issue from people who actually are trained to do it and who studied about it. And also it allows you to present your ideas and connect with people in the field. It can even help turn your passion for a social cause into a career. Um, I mean, for me, I remember I was working as a research assistant in the social responsibility center in the business school in my university, which is the American University of Beirut. And because of my work, I became really interested in social responsibility, individual and social responsibility of companies, CSR. And it really made me feel like I had to do something, which is business is always about just profit. And whereas social responsibility says that businesses should do more than just make profit, they should give back to their communities. And one of the major key components of FoodBlessed, my organization, is focusing on social responsibility, individual and those that of companies, by allowing them to give back to their community by volunteering, donating, or spreading awareness on the causes that we work on, which are hunger and food waste. Um, After this, there are some common principles that I wanted to share with you when it comes to youth-led and youth-driven organizations or movements. So these principle is that these movements and organization usually address power dynamics that shut down young people's developments and voice. So they exist to give the youth um, the opportunity to speak up and share their concerns. They maintain high expectations for all young people. They prioritize youth voices and develop young people's capacity to be effective decision makers and leaders, not just beneficiaries. They build organizational cultures and structures that support young people. So it's not just about spreading awareness, but also about building a culture or a structure that supports young people and gives them the opportunity to lead. Um, it invests in leadership development where older youth support emerging generations of leaders, as we discussed, in the form of mentors or trainers or coaches or whatever. Um, Support personal development as well, community building and healing. Um, Organize for community and political change. A lot of youth-led movements are organization in the end know that in order to elicit change, you have to talk about politics, and political change and community change is important in order to transform ideas into tangible action and results. Integrate anti-oppression analysis on race and gender, LGBTQ, and disability issues. So definitely youth-led movement organizations are all about being inclusive to all and have zero tolerance for discrimination. Um, Also, they redefine and heal intergenerational relationships. So there's always this generational gap between one generation and another. What youth-led movements organization try to do is to redefine these relationships and to heal them and make them work together. And finally, change adult perceptions of youth and support adult allies. So one thing that youth-led movements or organization try to prove, or not prove, but show, is that the perception adults have towards the youth are wrong, because the youth do have a role to play, and they can create change. Um, and by showing that, they also encourage adult allies or adults who want to support youth-led organizations and movements by providing their um, uh, what do you call it, expertise and knowledge sharing and things like that. So adult allies that want to have a supportive role, not a leading one. um Going forward, if like so going forward, if you want to start a youth-led movement or organization, you might be wondering, where do I start? So we started with the basics, which is at first trying to be engaged in youth-led organizations or movements, just seeing what they're about, how does it feel, or professionally by taking an internship or joining a club and things like that. But then if you were like, I want to start a youth-led movement or organization, where do I even start? First off, you will definitely need a strategy, like to like a roadmap, developing a strategy. And these steps are like small steps you need to follow if you want to create your own youth movement or organization. Step one is laying their groundwork. I'm going to go through them one by one. Two is stakeholder mapping and situation analysis. Three is ongoing consultation. Step four, defining your goals and outcomes. Step five, drafting the strategy. Step six is monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And step seven is all about reviewing and taking feedback. So laying the groundwork, first you need to get organized, like to set up a core team. For my organization, it was very important for me to work with people who I could get along with. And at the beginning, this was not possible. I used to work with like my team, we were three. and it was very difficult to work with them because we're not on the same wavelength, and that created a lot of problems for us. So my um whenever someone's asks me for my advice, I always say, when you want to start something, really try to find people who are like-minded or are committed to your to the cause you're passionate about as much as you are. um People who could be part of your core team can be um, people in your class, or like your friends, members in your club, volunteers you met. um, the ownership um, um, aspect of being part of your core team is very important. Everyone in your team should feel that they are heard and that their opinion matters. And once you create like a core team, and ownership is also important and crucial because it increases support by your team members, and to obtain the necessary collaborations and approvals that you need to get things going. um, and while discussing with core team, it's very important to focus on having a common communication platform. Could be online, could be offline, but one where everyone feels like they can contribute and be heard. Um, if the members of the core team do not have a regular access to the internet, for example, you always have to ensure that there's a way that they can participate. For example, having face-to-face meetings, or through financial support so that they can access the internet. Um, Also, when setting up the core team, take a moment to reflect on the diversity of your team. It's very important to have different groups of people being represented in your team. Um, so diversity in terms of membership has to cover that of having a diversity in age, sex, gender, race, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, religion, belief, ethnicity, socioeconomic status as well, etc. It's because the same problem is felt by different people in different ways, and it's important for each group of our community to be represented. um, and youth is not a homogeneous group. Contrary to what some people believe, youth is just one big category of people. It is, but the group of people is not a homogeneous group. It's very heterogeneous, it's very diverse. And as someone who's starting a youth-led movement or organization, should realize that and should reflect this diversity in their core team. Next step is defining roles, which is very important and might not be straightforward at the beginning. So it's okay to not know what role everyone has in the core team, but to be able to have open conversations about it, and to outline like clear roles and responsibility for your core teams, and just ask each other who you think is most capable to lead the process, who will review and provide input, who will be communicating with the team members, and with the team and the outside world, or stakeholders that also have to do with cause you're working on. Making a work plan and budget. So you got organized, you have your team, you defined your roles. Next step is to have a work plan and a budget. And it doesn't have to be a sophisticated work plan. It could be a simple one, like we want to achieve in the first year 1, 2, 3, or one thing, one item on our agenda. Having a timeline. So in the first 6 months, we want to do this much, and then the other 6 months do more, or change everything altogether because we learned that this way doesn't work, or this thing has to precede something else. I mean, it's all about trial like you're still forming, you're still beginning to work as a team. um, and you have to consider the financial implication of your work plan, like how much do we need to get things going. You could start with a zero budget. Like for me, I had no budget whatsoever. And so I tried to make use of everyone and everything around me. So I reached out to my friends. For example, I had a friend who worked in IT and he helped me develop the website for free. Um, I had someone who was really good with networks, and she introduced me to my mentor who helped me with my process of like spreading the word about who FoodBlessed is, because no one knew who FoodBlessed was, I mean, back in the time. So his net through his network, I was able to meet a lot of people who are also interested in food waste and hunger. And from there, uh, the more people talk about what you do, the more you will um, be able to do and like attract like-minded people, especially volunteers and things like that, and eventually funds. Um, so if you don't have internal resources, if internal resources are not available, you may need to identify external resources, like could be governmental institutions, for example, that support youth-led movements organization and give them funds. It could be a grant. You could do a fundraiser, which is the easiest way. You could do a GoFundMe campaign and raise money there. So, and it's very important to be transparent from the get-go about where the money you're using is coming from. Transparency is important for your credibility later on. So for me, I refuse to take any money from the government or political groups or religious groups. Uh, we wanted to identify ourselves as a nonprofit that's non-religious, that's non-political, non-partisan. So that was our one of our core values, that we are from the people to the people. And if we need help, we usually just reach out for to the community and like raise what we need to raise by crowdfunding or doing fundraising campaigns. Like we did a lot of bake sales, and it wasn't like a lot of money, but since we are volunteers and no one was getting paid anything, it really helped us because we could make use of every thing, we like every dollar we were able to raise. um so that's for the budget. Then you have to define youth, like what is youth? As a core team, you have to agree what for you is considered youth. um, and it would depend probably on what's most relevant in your country's context, like because some countries define youth as under 18, others as under 21, and then others as under 24. So this is important. Undertake background research is very important. So before you develop a strategy, you need to understand the challenges that you want to address. So what is it exactly that you are trying to address? What are others doing to address it? um where where are the gaps that you can fill in? Defining your vision is also very important. Like before you dive into action, you need to take a moment to reflect on a common vision for your group. So your vision basically is the situation, is what you want the situation to be like, instead of how it is today. So for me, I realized that a lot of good food was going to waste, and no one was doing anything about it, not even awareness or spreading awareness. So I thought that's something I could do. And my vision was to work uh, for Lebanon that has zero hunger and zero food waste, or at least to try to reduce the amount of food going to waste and the number of people going hungry. um a vision is something that is like like creating a vision is like an inspiration exercise that you can undertake together with the core team. um so that's basically laying the groundwork. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's just important to have these things outlined, even if it's in a simple manner, just to know who you are, what you want, how you're going to achieve that. Second step is stakeholder mapping and situation analysis. Stakeholders are usually any entity, being organization or individual, that are relevant to the cause that you're working with. So for me, working on food waste, it meant I had to um, focus on working with restaurants who threw a lot of food, with supermarkets, to work with students and the community to spread awareness, because consumers are number one food wasters usually. And throughout the food supply chain, you have from the farmers to the plate, food waste happens at each step of the food supply chain. So I wanted to focus on a part that I could really target. So it was very hard for me to focus on farmers, for example, or even the factories. So as our core team decided, we decided to focus on the consumer and the retailers, which are the supermarkets and the restaurants, and the consumers being the people who actually eventually buy the food from the supermarkets or at the restaurants. And that entailed us doing a situation analysis, what was lacking. So if you could see these post-it notes, so there's people who are affected by the issue, people who influence it, and people who are motivated to act. So step one, we had like you have to fill these and see. So the names that pop up are your stakeholders, so the people who are affected by the issue are a group, and those who influence it are a group, and those who are motivated to act are a group, and all of these are your stakeholders. um so stakeholders are usually the key players, you can say, and you need to involve them and consult them and have conversation with them to ensure that what you do supports your cause, and by engaging them, it gives them ownership or allows them to support your work as well. You also have to want to consider which stakeholders are already supportive and which ones may be more skeptical than others, so that you can work with them to mutual benefit. So possible stakeholders that you would like, also work with are other NGOs or nonprofit organizations that work with people facing food insecurity or hunger. I also work with activists. There's a Fridays for Future movement in Lebanon, and who focus on climate change, but also realize the importance that food waste has, the important role food waste has in uh, producing greenhouse gases, which are number one cause of climate change. Um, and other young leaders and groups, for example, students, university school students, scout groups. All of these have been stakeholders that we've worked with in order to achieve our vision. And then when you do the stakeholder mapping, you need to analyze the situation. So this is like analyzing how your group is uniquely positioned to respond to the issue that you're trying to address. one thing that you can do, if you don't know this, you can Google it. It's called a SWOT diagram. So SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, and then ONT stand for opportunities and threats. Um, and basically, the SWOT is a way for you to identify opportunities to expand your work and to discover what kind of threats that might jeopardize your movement or organization. And then at the same time, it allows you to identify uh, your strength or your advantages, what makes you unique. And then also your weaknesses, which is things that you need to improve. Most weaknesses are having to do with money, like financial. Others could have to do with weak communication, or core team, yeah, miscommunication, misunderstanding, things like that. So weaknesses could be on a personal level, or on the team level, or financial. So it could be internal weaknesses versus external ones. Same for strengths. Also opportunities. I mean, my opportunity was that no one was talking about food waste back in the time. So that was an opportunity for me to spread awareness, especially that no one else was doing it. The threat was that maybe a lot of people, and I faced that. I was too young, and I mean, all autism, and then a lot of people didn't even. So, word of advice: when you're young, sometimes you will be faced with a lot of negativity and oppression, and the opposite of support, just because you are a young person trying to make a change. Some adults just can't stand that, so they will do whatever they can to crush you. So always consider, um, and even the people closest to you, like your family, might think you're nuts for doing this. Like, go find a real job. This is not a job, or what you're doing is just a waste of time. um you will always hear these. It's totally natural. Like, for me, I always advise people who are following their dreams or doing something they believe in, um to expect that, and to try as much as they can not to listen or let it get into their heads, because eventually, um more than I believe that you can follow your dreams at any time, but most of us keep postponing that because society has a specific definition of success, and it has to do with having a salary and a car and a house and a job. But real success is doing what you love, and doing what you believe in. And most of the time, it's not a job. There's no house, there's no car, there's no salary. It's just you and the cause, or what you're passionate about, and a bunch of people who believe in you and want to support you in following your passion. So yes, it's a threat that sometimes you will have no support, but it also is, or a weakness, but it also is a strength, because it will drive you and give you um, the motive you need to just go on and do what you believe in. Because worse than failing in life, I believe, is not trying. Not trying is the real failure, but trying and failing is success, because at least you had the courage to try. Some of us don't even have the courage to do that. um so that's it for that. And then if you want to look deeper into the problem, social, environmental, whatever problem you're trying to address with your movement or organization, having a problem tree is important for analyzing the situation. So more than a core problem, like for me, it was food waste. So why is it a problem? Because of its effects. Food waste is not just an environmental issue, it's also social and ethical, moral, I mean. And what are the causes? In order to address the problem, you need to know what causes it. So for me, it was people throwing food because they don't know that they can still consume it, or because they just are not mindful. They have this mindset of a consumerism. So you throw it, you buy something new or better. Or like in our culture, the Eastern culture, we are known to be very generous. So when we have people over, if we're having 2 people over, we cook for like 5. And this definitely leads to surplus of food. Some people might store it, might donate it, but the majority usually just throw it away. So that was one of the causes that I wanted to address. And it's really fun. Problem trees are always fun to tackle, because you just discover things or causes that you thought, because even within causes, you have direct causes and indirect causes. So people tend to waste food. That's a cause, a direct cause. Indirect one is because maybe they weren't taught that food is a blessing, and that food uh, um, comes from resources that most of which are um infinite, like are not infinite. Like, so a banana is not just a banana came to be because of someone planted it, labor, sun, water, soil, fertilizers. All these resources um were put into creating this banana, and when you throw it away, you're just wasting or throwing all these resources, and also the money or the investment that went into producing it. And a lot of people, when they throw a banana, they don't think about these things. But once I go and I talk about it, a lot of them start to think about food waste differently. So that's me tackling the indirect cause, which is knowledge, education, behavior, attitude. And then when you have like communities or individuals that are aware, food waste will decrease. All right, enough for the problem tree. Ongoing consultation. What's that all about? So consultations is when you consult or take other what do you call it, opinions into considerations. Consultations can be either done online or offline, and it involves a group of actors who are crucial um, to the issue that you're trying to address. So not just for the development of the strategy, but also for the implementation, it's important to secure the necessary resources, be it knowledge, financial, and human resources. So I'm sharing here something called do-it-yourself theory of change. And there's like questions and assumptions. And this is something that you could fill with your core team, and then do a focus group with some of your community members and try to fill it with them, and then compare what you have and what they have. And you know, have different opinions, consultations, and these should be ongoing. Like, try to have them often, see what works, what doesn't. Also, having online consultations is important because you cover more geographical areas, so you have a bigger geographical reach and more diverse. So you have a core team, right? But by having consultations, you can have more opinions from different parts of the country or of the world. Um, so have some people confirm that they want to be part of it. You can have it through Skype or a focus group. You can use a range of digital tools. You might do an online poll or survey as well. There's a lot of free tools available: Google, Facebook, WhatsApp. And now, because you have done some background research, and you better understand the situation, uh, and how your current organization or movement engages with the youth, you can take a step back and look at your analysis and think about what stands out, and use let me put this use all of this to define your goals and outcomes. So what is it that you want to achieve, and if you achieve these goals, what are the outcomes? So there's something known as the flower of participation. I'm sharing this slide so you can later like see what things in detail more. Trying to see, it's done now. All right, cool. Drafting the strategy. When drafting the strategy, it's very important. Sorry, here. So when drafting the strategy, it's very important to be inclusive, to include everyone, um, and to have continuous dialogue. So the people who are the stakeholders, they have to be involved. So this is like kind of a summary of everything that we went through before. All right. I think that's the last, not least, is it? No, before the last. Monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So these are a bit far too ahead, but I'm gonna talk about them anyway. Monitoring, evaluation, and learning is very important because at one point you have to evaluate what has been done and use that as opportunity to improve, and always make time to get together with your core team and the stakeholders and see what has been done, and see if it was good, could it be improved, was it bad, why, how can we avoid certain mistakes, how can we better address future challenges. I mean, from my experience, you can it's very important to hear from others, but at the end of the day, you will learn the most from your own mistakes. And one size does not fit all, definitely. So what works in one country will not necessarily, sorry, I just need to fix something. Okay, cool, sorry. So one size does not fit all. Something that you learn is that if something worked with Greta, say, in one country, doesn't mean it will definitely work in yours. Or if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's your fault. uh you have to always take into consideration cultural and socioeconomic factors when evaluating why some things, or yeah, when realizing or analyzing why some things worked, others didn't. Or what I usually do is that I look at something that worked and I try to see if I implement it, but within the context of my country, what would I need to change, right? um it's very important to cater your message according to the country where you're trying to mobilize and engage. Language is very important. Respecting the culture is also important. Being all inclusive as well. Last but not least, review and approval process. So once you've done all these steps, and I know it's been a long discussion, and I hope you're learning and enjoying it as much as you can, you're ready to go public. So and then um um like what I wanted to say is that it's not going to be easy. I mean, even if you get all these things right, doesn't mean that you won't have any challenges or mistakes won't be made. You will have a lot of challenges. Some of your core team members might decide that they don't want to be part of the core team, or just they have to travel or thing. So it's very important to be flexible. It's very important to be resilient, to have plan B, C, D. Like I've learned to always have backup plans and not just one, two, and more, because you never know what's going to happen. Maybe the weather will be different, and people won't show up, or you might be misunderstood. So always expect the worst but work for the best. And then taking action and communicating your results. Most actions now are being communicated online, which is very, very effective, but at the same time, there's a lot of false facts that are being shared. It's very important when you communicate your message to base it on something that you're really certain of, because you don't want to be that person that's contributing to the already huge pool of false facts and news. So my 2 cents, or I wanted to share this with you. It's based on my experience, and also I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of change makers and leaders, or people who are part of youth-led movements and organizations. Try and trust will move mountains. So as I mentioned, one of the best things that a youth movement or a youth organization can do is to stop telling youth or the young that they are apathetic, or that they don't care, and start telling them that they are powerful and inspiring, and that they actually not can be but have to be part of the solution. For example, the Fridays for Future movement promoted positive messages about the abilities of youth. Like no one would ever expect Fridays for Future movement to become what it became. And Greta, for certain, has inspired many young people around the world to believe in themselves and think that they can and will make a difference, and to try to do so. Like trying is very important, and trusting or having trust in Generation Z or in future generations is also important. There's still also a group of people who have not yet fully realized this lesson, and have limited their youth-led organizations or movements to working with the youth, and seeing them as just important for turnout events or trainings or large rallies. So in a sort of a participatory approach, not one that has to do with decision making. So once the youth are trusted to take on bigger roles and fill in the, what do you call it, large shoes, they can definitely do that. So it's important for others to believe in them, for them to lead. A second point is that follow-up is hugely important. So as an organization, like my organization, we rely purely on volunteers. Follow-up is very important. So when people show their interest in your cause, it's very important to give them the opportunity to share how they feel, to connect with them, to take their information, to invite them to come and see how you work and be part of it. Because you can't do like alone you can do so, like alone you can do much, together we can do so much more. I think this is how it goes. um Building a sustained movement means following up with those who participate to ensure that they stay involved. um for example, some campaigns that have failed to do that have focused on getting, for example, youth just to pledge to vote or to be part of their rallies. Um, and yes, they will be there, but then they feel that they're just a number, and or show interest and are invited to come once but not invited to come again. So you might lose these supporters. So follow-up is very important. Feedback is very important, because you might think what you're doing is the best way, but by receiving feedback you'll realize that there might be another way or a better way. um and both is important, not just for youth-led campaigns or movements or organizations. It can be especially though important for young people, because they are already new to all of this, especially when it comes to political engagement and civil engagement. So having them interested is good, but it's not enough to keep them coming. Their interest has to be transformed into tangible action. Just gonna check the chat. I think someone wrote something. Oh, Brahim, you're interested in joining my organization. Awesome, we'll talk about that. Sorry guys, I haven't been right, coolish. Remind me to share my contact information at the end. The second point I wanted to talk about, my 2 cents: by learning you will teach, by teaching you will learn. So basically, it's very important to learn transferable skills. The best type of activism, it serves two purposes. It accomplishes a campaign objective, but while also empowering the participants and helping them master the skills that they can use in other contexts. Part of what my organization, FoodBlessed, does is that by allowing members of community to volunteer, they think they are giving back and helping the community, but a lot of them come back to me and say that they themselves have benefited so much because volunteering have enabled them to feel empowered, have improved their communication skills, have boosted their confidence, even mentally. Like if you want to talk about mental health, which is something that, because of COVID and everything that's happening around the world, a lot of our mental health has deteriorated, and volunteering is one way you can boost your mood and feel more worthwhile, or that a lot of us fall into the feeling that we're not enough or we're not doing enough. Volunteering helps us feel that like what we do matters. Us being there just is important, and the things that we do, the little things, do have an impact. So volunteering or being part of a cause that we're passionate about, be it, for example, veganism or against climate change or things like that, it teaches us to be better individuals by leading the change, being leading by example. And all of this eventually uh, builds up to forming or transforming us into responsible citizens and mindful consumers. So yeah, for me, it's very important to teach my volunteers or the young skills that they can use in the future or in their daily lives, because often we have little formal training as activists. Like we usually just act in the spur of the moment or things like that. um but like what we learn is important eventually, and by sharing what we learn or what I learned and apply it again and again, it becomes a transferable skills. And once one is armed with the right knowledge, young people can be empowered to transfer skills to other generations. So my role is transfer the skills I have with this generation in the hopes of that this generation will hopefully transfer those skills to the future generations. Um, and by accomplishing this, it means structuring movements in a way that youth not just have a participatory role, but by allowing them to have leadership roles and hands-on experiences, building campaigns from the ground up, empowering them to like basically be the change they want, to see. Be specific about what you want to achieve. It's very important, this point, because like for example, when I used to meet with people who are passionate about activists, let's not say people, activists for climate change or climate activism, they used to talk a lot about comprehensive climate legislation and creating green jobs. And to them, it sounded great, but it was sometimes unclear exactly what these words meant or how one can achieve these things that they were talking about. The problem is with vague terms like, for example, comprehensive legislation, is that they mean many things to many people. On the other hand, some campaigns that also work on climate change used to have specific goals that are tied to define strategies. So they used to say, we want to stop oil pipelines, for example, or close coal plants, or divest universities from fossil fuel, and encourage people to use what do you call that, green transportation. These campaigns have achieved more concrete results and wins while building their coalitions, and made their movement stronger because they were clear in what they wanted to do. So fossil fuel divestment, for example, is a particularly good example of a student-focused campaign with an easily understood goal and clear framework for building power, because their aim is to reduce carbon emissions, and to do so this, what do you call it, the framework that we're working on is to help people adopt renewable energy transitions through the stigmatization of fossil fuel. Another thing that I've learned is it's important to partner with frontline communities. So it's not only like the right thing to do, but it's also strategic, it's fun, and it's empowering. But make sure you are with the right communities. And some ask me, how do you know? I would say it's a gut feeling, but I definitely think it's not just a gut feeling, but it's also something that I learned from experience. It's very important when you work with someone to be comfortable with working with that someone. And in order to be comfortable, in my opinion, your values and their values should align. And I've met with so many people over the years. At the beginning, I used to go and just sit and listen to them talking about things that I thought were irrelevant, were nothing like they were, the values they had were very different from mine. But I would say, oh, just let me give them a chance. Maybe we could eventually do something good together, but it was never good. And so I learned these people are toxic, and the best way is to avoid them altogether. So if there's someone, uh, you or them, they want to work with you and you feel it's not a right fit, just not don't go for it, because it's just a waste of energy and time and resources. I could not tell you how many meetings I've done in my life that I thought were a total waste of time. So now, even before someone like when someone asks me for a meeting, I try to understand who they are, what they want from our meeting or my organization before even talking about a meeting, because so many, it's just more efficient that way. And now it's easier with WhatsApp, and everyone is somehow connected to social media. So you can definitely also research these individuals, see their work, see if what they do aligns with what you do, or what their vision is aligns with their vision. It's very important, at least for me, because it just saves me a lot of headaches and like just mental deterioration. It's just surprising how some people think about things that you think are just straightforward, especially people who are old and they still think that they are know-it-all. So yeah, but I try to listen. It's very important to listen, to give them the opportunity to explain themselves, and then take the decision that needs to be taken. Um, so some of the most inspiring moments I can think of from youth campaigns involved students, or us at least from my organization, interacting with people on the streets, people on the front lines. um, and it was really nice how our volunteers were all from all backgrounds, from all walks of life. So it was lovely to see volunteers who are young and those who are like very old sitting and having conversations and working side by side. It's something that you don't see usually, because we're used to like it's us then our parents. But when it comes to youth-led movements, adults have like a different roles, and theirs is more of a supportive one than the one that we're used to, them giving orders and us following those orders. Which brings me to the other point, which is partnering with older activists. um, Another thing that is empowering to youth activists is the opportunity to work with not so quite young individuals who have a different set of life experiences. So for me, it's very heartening when I see older people or people from other generations concerned about the things I'm concerned about. Um, Similarly, non-youth activists tend to find it like encouraging to see young people rising to build movement and reaching out to hear from them. Um, but this doesn't mean that student and older activist groups should merge. It's just there's real value in youth specific organization that let young people bond and learn from their peers in a familiar setting. Different activist generations also tend to have different organizational cultures, which don't always go line in line with those of the youth. However, this doesn't mean that youth and non-youth movements shouldn't be collaborating or attending each other events or building strong alliances. I mean, in my organization, as I said, I've seen college freshmen and retirees volunteering side by side, providing meals for those in need. Because one of the things we do at FoodBlessed is that we provide meals for people in need and food parcels. We package and deliver them ourselves. And I've seen so many times the young and adults in our volunteer groups interact with each other in a way where everyone just feels equal. There's no you and me, there's only we. And this is very empowering, and is nothing like it's different when you're in your house with your parents where you feel like you're young, and when you're volunteering and people who are same age as your parents are working side by side with you, and it feels somehow like there's no age difference anymore. And youth-led movement usually are good in achieving this result. Um, Having hard conversations about equity and inclusion. So maybe it doesn't sound straightforward or seem straightforward at the beginning, but it doesn't mean that, not because we're not having these conversations, that they're not there. For example, like the mainstream climate movement and environmentalism somehow continues to be, for some, overwhelmingly white middle class affair. But today's youth seem more ready than ever to have tough conversations about dismantling racism and deconstructing environmentalism's Eurocentric dominant narratives in a way that makes everyone feel like they are part of the solution, because the problem affects us all, regardless of our race and gender and color, etc. And I have to say, I'm continually impressed by how much more aware today's youth tend to be about issues related to race and gender and privilege. Because in my organization, we have a community kitchen, and in our culture, somehow cooking and being in the kitchen um, is related more to females than males. So one time, one of the volunteers in our kitchen didn't want to wear the apron and said it's too girly or feminine. And I remember telling him that in this organization, we don't really make the distinction of like being a man or a woman or a girl or a boy. We're all equal, and signing up to do the job or volunteering with us means signing up to just doing that. So wearing the apron, it meant you believe in our cause and you believe that everyone's equal. So to my surprise, he turned and said, you're right. I actually do enjoy cooking anyway. I'm gonna wear the apron, and tell you what, you can even take a picture of me and post it on social media, and I'll even send it to my mom. So to me, that was a moment of achievement. I was like so happy. I was able to change one person's mind about gender roles in the kitchen. And sometimes it's just about walking the talk. Like, you just saw everyone there, females and males, wearing aprons, feeling like one team, everyone's equal. And he wanted to be part of this. And if it meant wearing an apron or changing the way he thought about gender roles, then that was fine with him. So yeah. What else? Youth need mentors, not sages. I saw this also on the email on the internet. You probably know that from your parents, is that whenever you face a problem, they start giving you all this advice and telling you what to do. And like, hey, I want to share my wisdom with you because I lived longer and I've been where you are now. I've been in your shoes. I mean, as a young person, there's nothing less empowering than listening to an older person tell you that, oh, this is not how real activism is done. Back in the days, we used to do this and that. But young people don't need sages telling them what to do. What they really need is mentors, like people who have the experience and who have the knowledge and who are willing to share that, but do so humbly, and with the realization that the youth also have their own knowledge and they have skills to share, and giving it when they're asked for it, not just giving it just to give it. um I mean, for me, I'm always like particularly motivated by the argument that because the generation before mine screwed up, it was my generation's job to fix things. um I wanted to know, since that older generation was still around, why they couldn't pitch in and help. I also knew many older activists who have tried to help in just this way, and I was able to learn things I never could have learned by myself. It was important to have them. So, um, I mean, the story of youth activism these last 10 plus years has been one of gradually building power, learning hard lessons, and setting examples of what dedicated organizing looks like. And maybe the young or the youth are able to do where the adults fail, and that is they come together around a common cause. And in coming together, there's only we. There's no I, there's no you, there's no me, there's we. And I think that's where the adults fail, because for them, it's more about power balance and getting credit. And, the I is so important for adults sometimes. But for the youth, it's mostly about we, and as like a group, what we can do together. So I think, like, for example, the climate movement has made a significant contribution in showing how when young people come together, they can elicit change and have huge impact worldwide on both the young but also not so young groups, in a way that what they did was so inspirational that the adults started joining these groups. So without the work of climate and other youth activists over the decades, some of the larger mass movements of today may not have even come into being. Like for Fridays for Future, it started with one girl just protesting. She skipped her classes, and then a couple followed, and then a couple 100,000 millions. So what she did is just she walked the talk. She did what she thought had to be done. And since no one else was doing it, she took it on herself to do it herself. And so, yeah, that's the you part. I mean, you have a huge role. And sometimes instead of waiting for someone else to do what needs to be done, you should be the one doing it. I mean, what else is in here? For some reason, it's stuck. So I think I'm at my conclusion, but I can't control. Subject? Oh, all right, cool. Conclusion. In conclusion, to make an impact, be it an environmental or political or social, a youth-led movement needs good ideas, but also the ability to make them heard. To be successful, You also need innovation, you need passion, you need open-mindedness. That's some of the things that you guys mentioned. I'm just going to open the chat again. You need unique approach, new generation, innovation, positivity, all of these, strategic group strategy, enthusiasm, smiles. Yes, it's very important. Having the right energy, being fearless is definitely one of them. Uplifting, powerful, all of these. And those who were profiled seem to have an unlimited, like those who started all these major youth movements and organizations seem to have an abundance and unlimited supply of these things that we just mentioned. And whether it's a high school student or an application that someone came up that connects activists, or a Twitter post, or someone who turned their tragedy into a cause or an action. Young people are tackling tough problems with new ways, some or new solutions. Some of us might call as disruptive, but disruption is not always a bad thing. On the contrary, I mean, from chaos, sometimes new things emerge, things that we could never, imagine. So my advice to you is that if there's something you believe in and you think it has to be done and no one else is doing it, be that person who does it. Try to find like-minded people who will help you in your journey. Yes, you might start on your own, but believe me, once people see you doing what needs to be done, they might also be wondering why no one else did it and will join you. I mean, I remember when I created my organization, so many people were like, oh my God, food waste. I've always been thinking about food waste and that something had to be done, but I was too busy. And I mean, wow, you actually did it. And I used to sound like the huge difference between what if and what is a small difference, or between what I can do and actually what I do, is what differentiates followers from leaders, is that we all see the same problems, but those of us who are fearless, as you mentioned, or brave enough to venture and try to be part of the solution, are the ones who are sometimes thought considered stupid or crazy or wasting their time. But there's a quote that those who are crazy enough are the ones who eventually change the world. And there's one by Gandhi, is that first they will fight you, blah, blah, and then you win. So I'm just trying to say that if it's not hard, it's not worth it. If it's easy, then there's something wrong. Because usually the things that are worth fighting for are not easy. They're hard. Never stop believing in yourself. I know I didn't, although there were so many times I just wanted to quit and have a normal non-activist life. But I definitely would have regretted it if I did give up on the things I was passionate about. It's been 8 years, and so far we've been able to rescue over 1 million meals, 1 million tons of food from going to waste. We've been able to provide over 1,600,000 meals to people in need, and almost 30,000 food parcels to people in need across Lebanon. And all of this started with an idea of a project a lot of people thought was crazy. And I mean, what volunteers? You can never accomplish things without paying people to do the job. Uh, but sometimes adults miss the point that some people, some of us are so passionate about something that they would be willing to do it. And the only return that they want is for them to feel that they actually were part of the solution. And that's called, I used to say, inner richness. So I used to tell my parents that in terms of external wealth, I'm the poorest. But when it comes to internal richness, I'm so rich because I feel like I feel accomplished, and I feel I've spent my life on the things that matter to me. And what I did doing what I love has inspired others to also do what they love. And it's not easy, but never is, doing what you love. And from this workshop, call it what you want, I just wanted to share a small roadmap. But I always say that each one of us, I mean, there's no, like, one size does not fit all. So try to get inspired from what I shared with you today and see what works for you and what doesn't. Do your diligent research. It's very important to do your research and background research to see what's been done. Maybe someone else is working on the things that you are passionate about. For me, no one was working on food waste, so I had to do something. But I do believe if someone else was working and that person or that movement aligned with my values, I would have definitely joined. Because if you actually find another group that is doing the things that you would do, just join them. Sometimes being like united, we are so much stronger together than like one big group working on a same cause is more is stronger than five groups working on the same cause. But yeah, I do understand sometimes it's very hard to find groups of people that you can work with. That's why you have to always be open-minded, which is something that someone mentioned. And you have to be tolerant and non-judgmental. It's very important. And make everyone feel that they matter, because real strength in your movement organization is in how strong your members are. So you are strong, you are as strong as the unity of your group is. In my organizations, we're very close to the extent that I used to say when I started FoodBlessed, I wanted to help those in need and the environment. But over the years, I realized that the volunteers were like benefiting the most. And what started as an organization is now a community. And this t-shirt I'm wearing is something we wear in my organization. And the double H stands for Hunger Hero. And it's something that I believe describes who we are and what we do, because we save lives on a daily basis, be it those of the people we help or giving fruits and vegetables and food another chance, instead of them just being dumped in landfills. So Hunger Heroes, and it's lovely, and I hope one day you will feel what I'm talking about. It's when something that you believed in transformed from an idea to an organization and now to a community. So it's like the best feeling for me is when I'm walking in the streets and someone says, "Oh my God, you're hungry here. You're like that girl from FoodBlessed that saves food." And I just smile. And then something that I always encounter when I'm walking down the streets, like a kid or a guy would be like, "Oh my God, wait, there's Superman and there's Spider-Man, but what's this? I mean, I've never met this superhero." I'm like, it stands for hunger hero. And I mean, we don't have really superpowers, but we're heroes because we save lives on a daily basis. And I just feel so proud of saying I'm a hunger hero, and that I'm part of a community that fights hunger and food waste. And that took a lot of work and years, and we're still working on spreading knowledge and awareness, because it just takes a lot of work to spread awareness, especially when people are interested in so many things. Like, a lot of people still think food waste is not even a problem, or there are more important problems. But I keep telling them that food waste is even more dangerous than plastic when it comes to climate change, especially to people who are interested in climate change. And not a lot of them know that food waste is one of the major reasons for climate change. So yeah, my job is far from over, and I don't think I'll ever be able to say, "Oh, my job is done for the day." And that's the job of an activist, is they have to always be active. And our job is just, yeah, to try to help others realize what is wrong with the world, and the huge important role that they as individuals, be it youth or not youth, have to play. Because unless we all feel like we are part of the problem and part of the solution, we can never reach a result, unless everyone feels that they are responsible for what's happening with the world and that they have a role to play. And on that point, I want to end my chat. I just wanted to see some of the chats here. And I open the floor for anyone who wants to ask question. Yeah, if you want to ask any questions. I know that. Hey.
Hi. So, could you give us 3 takeaway on this presentation now? What can everyone take home? Just 3 things, Maya, please. Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Don't be judgmental, and always speak up. Don't be afraid, speak up.
Don't be afraid, speak up.
And definitely what I mentioned, walk the talk, lead by example. Lead by example, I think, is the best advice. And the one that I always give to my volunteers is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It's very important. And the message is always treat others the way you want to be treated. But it also can apply for the planet, because I mean, we only have one planet. So it's very important to treat our planet the way that we would treat any living organism, with respect and dignity, and being responsible and mindful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for being such awesome listeners. I hope you really benefited. I'm reading your feedback. Thank you for sharing that. It makes me happy. I'm sharing my email. LinkedIn is my TERRO. My organization, you can find it on Instagram, Facebook. It's FoodBlessed. What else? Yeah, if anyone needs any help, I'm more than happy to share. I mentioned the mentor part. If I can definitely help you as a mentor, I'll be more than happy. And if I can't, I'll be even happier to see if any one of my friends can be your mentor.
Hello. Sorry. I think some people on the chat, they said they would like to partner with you. I think Ibrahim and so Peter Oluleke.
Yeah.
So do you have chance for partnership, people in UK?
I'm gonna just copy all the chats and try to put them on a document so that they won't. Right. Yeah, definitely, guys. Just write me. I'm also on Facebook, on Instagram, just Maya Tarot. I don't use Twitter that much, honestly. But like I'm mostly found on Facebook and Instagram, and definitely I check my email. All right, let me just trying to copy all your chats so I won't lose them for later. Basically, yeah. Anyone wants to say anything? I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I haven't heard from most of you, but I read the chats.
Yes. Maya. There's some you made a good point about the ageism. You know, where young people get discriminated by older generation.
Yeah.
Which I faced that too in Nigeria when I was in Nigeria, and I see the social difference in UK here as well. But I'm trying to gather from you, how would you look into safeguarding or safety net of young activists? Because we young activists, we go through a lot, both physical abuse, mental health problem with the oppressors. It could be politicians, it could be oil corporations in Nigeria. I can give you an example. There was recent protests in Nigeria last year. Young generation, every young boy, every young people were out on the streets calling for end of bad governance and many reasons, but most of them get shot in Lagos by military. So how do you see United Nations protecting activists from state actors? What could you say?
You know, in Lebanon, we also have been protesting for the past 2 years because of the economic situation. And the majority of the people protesting are the youth, because a lot of them are worried about their future. Many of them have left the country. The economic situation here is so bad. And on the streets, although the army would say that they would not like they would let the protesters protest in peace, but eventually they would end up beating them and shooting them. It's really difficult to say. Like, definitely I'm with non-violent protests. I believe that the minute the protesters, sometimes, you know what, even when the protesters were peaceful, there were people within the protesters whose main job was just to make a scene or trouble, so that the army had a reason to interfere.
To intervene. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's these people, I don't know what you call them in English. I know in Arabic we call them mindasin. Like someone planted them in the crowds, and their job is just to create commotion. Yeah.
That's right. In UK, we noticed it as well, because I work with the Police and Crime Commissioner in West Midland, the candidate. Yeah. So we strategically, we gather that sometimes when there is a controversial protest. Sometimes the authorities whom the protest is based on, they send a mob within the protesters
yeah, that's the word.
to create problem in order for police to see reason to be brutalizing the protester. You are right. But apart from that, I'm looking at some security cover that will safeguard protester by UN, so that any activists across the world, they will have this protection, whether through a membership or showing their sign on their chest that they are peaceful protester recognized by UN. What I'm looking at, safe way, safe way. Young people are being killed across the world, especially where the mainstream media is not active.
I mean, you know what? From history, it's not just me. It's really rare to be able to have like a safe protest. Even, what can I say? Like from my experience, even when the protesters come in peace, sometimes they're provoked so that they become unpeaceful. And I was fought by many of my friends because I am someone who is with peaceful protesting and activism. And a lot of them say that, no, you have to use force sometimes, you have to be violent to get what you want. This is where we differ, because it's very hard to get everyone to be to agree on how they think the protest should go forward, or what's the best way to go on with your protest. So even if you have the UN, it's hard to change people's perception of how they want to protest. Some people will be with nonviolent protests. Others believe that, an angry and a hungry person is very dangerous, because it's very hard for them to see what's right and wrong. And for them, anger and violence is the only way they can express the anger and violence that's within them. And so more than just having someone put a peaceful tag on you, I think what we need to address is the reasons why people are protesting to start with. And then, so if you don't have water, if you don't have electricity, if you can't feed your children, if you're drowning in debts, I mean, I know from experience, if you tell that person, please, let's protest in peace, and he'll be like, but what did that bring us? Nothing. It's time to be violent. That's the only way they can listen to us. It's about attitude, it's about behavior. And this is like the tree I mentioned with the causes. There's direct and indirect causes. So before asking the UN to do this, I think we need to work on the protesters themselves. But even though there's something like that, there will always be something that the police will invent to say that they had to use violence or force. Yeah, it's a never-ending war. And I mean, I just want to, I always tell my friends that the police is just doing their job, and they also believe in our cause, but at the end of the day, they need to do their job. So the police might be our enemy in their uniform, but when they take that uniform off, they're just like us. And if they could, they would be standing on our side, not on the other side. So
that's true. That's true. I think Peter wants to speak. Peter, I think.
On Maya, really quickly, if you might also want to check out JGAP, it connects to that.
Check what?
Oh, okay, that's fine. Thank you.
But Peter, go ahead.
Thanks. I wanted to ask, thank you, Maya, for this impressive delivery. It's really extensive. I can imagine a lot of work that must have gone into your presentation, and it's the level of research you've actually done. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I want to ask, is it very possible we get a slide?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just send me an email. I'll send it your way. No worries. I mean,
So
I
I've
know
sent you.
IUCN has it, but I can definitely share
Okay.
it as well.
Okay. So I've sent you a friend request or a LinkedIn request.
All right.
So probably we can get things going from there.
All right. I'll
Then,
check it.
okay. From there, we can discuss further. Then hope you'll
Sure.
be willing to speak with my team. I'd love to invite you to share your experiences on advocacy with my team. Hope you're willing.
Definitely. I'm all about sharing. Sharing is caring.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Then thank you all. Victor, I can see your, so it's nice to also meet you. Then also everyone on the group, Daniel and Co. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's Ibrahim. I'm just checking my LinkedIn, guys, before I forget. I
That's fine.
think it's at the end. If anyone needs to say anything, let me know. If not, I think I need to disconnect because I'm the host. So let me check just the messages one more time. All right, there's some things I didn't copy. Here.
I sent you message request on Instagram, yeah?
Deal.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your time and for your questions and for your awesome feedback. I don't know if Safia is still here, but thank you so much also for your help at the beginning. It was such a pleasure and an honor. And I hope we meet sometime somewhere in this universe.
Sure.
Lots of love your way. Bye,
Take
guys.
care. All right.
Stay
Take care.
strong. You too.